first Rennsport icon began with the 2.7 RS of 1973. That car has obviously gone on to become something of a halo model for Porsche. And the trouble is, if you want to get your hands on one of them today, it's going to set you back the best part of £500,000 minimum for a touring example. What if I told you there's a car from the factory that shares the same engine, transmission and chassis as that RS, weighs the same, is just as rare, but costs half as much? Well, it exists, and this is it. 2.7 MFI Carrera. Yes!
So what are we dealing with here then? Well, this is a top-of-the-line 911 Carrera from the 1974 model year, but its spec sounds almost identical to the track-focused Carrera RS from 1973. Think evocative Carrera side script and a fixed wing out back, a 2.7 litre engine with manual fuel injection and a 7,200 RPM redline, throttle control, a 5-speed 915 gearbox and staggered Fuchs wheels sitting under genuine RS arches. The obvious differences to a 2.7 RS are those impact bumpers front and rear, but performance figures too are in line with the first 911 Rennsport, and it's all thanks to that flat 6. So in here is the beating heart of any 911, and with the 2.7 Carrera we have an RS engine. The 911/83 coded 2.7 litre flat 6 from the RS has found its way into the 2.7 Carrera. What does that mean? That means 210 horsepower at 6,300 RPM. That converts to a 0 to 60 time of dead on 6 seconds, powering this car all the way on to a top speed of 149 mile an hour. Impressive stuff, so let's get it fired up.
Now the history of these cars is bizarre really, because perhaps rightly it's forever lived in the shade of that 2.7 RS. It's amazing what two letters can do really, isn't it? Because if we go back to 2013 when the 911 became 50 years old, values of the 2.7 RS as the Halo 911 rocketed, and almost overnight cars were worth £1 million. Meanwhile the 2.7 Carrera could still have been picked up for £80,000. And there's no way the 2.7 RS in driver's terms is 10 times the car of the 2.7 Carrera MFI. Of course, as I mentioned at the start of the video, values of the 2.7 RS have cooled a little bit, and one can be picked up for just over £500,000 plus. But a 2.7 Carrera like this, which is one owner from new and has 55,000 miles on the clock, can be had for £250,000. That's half a 2.7 RS.
And it's just as rare too. With 1,582 RSs made, there are an additional 51 Carrera MFI coupes in the world. Those 631 Targas were also built.
If you look at things from a UK only perspective, which is what this car is, the 2.7 Carrera is actually rarer. There are just 21 examples of this car made in coupe form, with only 6 Targas. Again, those are the sort of stats that appeal to collectors. Of course, this being a 1974 model year car means that it shared the limelight, or more likely was robbed of the limelight, by the 930 Turbo, Porsche's new blown supercar with 260 horsepower, completely stealing the show and marking a new dawn of turbocharged cars that went on to spawn 934s, 935s, and is still alive today in the form of the 911 Turbo. As you well know, an iconic design trait of the 2.7 RS was, of course, that ducktail spoiler on the back. The first ever fixed rear wing on a production road car. In terms of the 2.7 Carrera, the 1974 model year cars, so they are the model year cars that immediately followed the RS, those cars came with the ducktail. It was the 75 and 76 model year cars, this one being a 75 by the way. That switched over to the whale tail found on the Porsche 911 Turbo. Aside from that, and of course the impact bumpers that came in with the G Series models to satisfy US crash safety regulations, the cars are very, very similar. The car has the same brakes, the car has the same torsion bars, the car has the same Bilstein dampers. As for UK models only, I need to qualify. Where the car does deviate from that 2.7 RS is inside, and it's because it's been upgraded. Notice the seats, for example, for the first time incorporating a headrest into the actual seat itself. You've also got this lovely G-Series 3-spoke sport steering wheel. There's obviously a change in the door cards, they don't have the pull straps of the RS.
You might be wondering how a car boasting additions to its bodywork can still weigh the same as Porsche's lightweight Carrera RS, which was 1,075 kilos in touring form. Well, the G-Series cars brought about some key engineering advancements from Porsche. For example, rear trailing arms on the 2.7 Carrera MFI were made from aluminium rather than steel, saving 3.5 kilos here alone. The 2.7 Carrera also has some healthy tweaks over the RS, including anti-roll bars. The RS has 18mm front and rear ARBs, whereas the Carrera 2.7 utilises 18mm rear but thicker 20mm anti-roll bars on the front. Everything else is pretty similar.
So how does it drive then? Well, blimey. This car feels quick, especially exacerbated by its tiny size by modern standards. It doesn't just come down to the engine, of course. The chassis on this thing is absolutely awesome. In it having an RS chassis means it is fairly bumpy on country roads. Not anywhere near as bumpy as perhaps a modern sport suspension, for example. It's actually quite supple, it's totally palatable to be honest on these sort of country roads. It does have a real focus to the car that kind of belies its age in many ways. It feels super planted. Perhaps that additional weight over the front of the car from those impact bumpers helps just tuck the nose in a little bit better with a little bit more precision than a 2.7 RS. And yet, matched all of that, you have a great degree of comfort generally. The seats are super comfortable to sit in, perhaps not particularly as supportive as a 2.7 RS, but they're plenty comfortable. It's a bit more sound deadening in ears, you can actually have a conversation with your passenger if you like. Shift is great, by the way, for this 915 box. I've said on other videos before, with any sort of G-Series car with the 915 box, that can really make or break the car. If the gearbox is even remotely recalcitrant to go into the gear, it makes life very, very difficult, but this is absolutely superb. So where does this leave us then? Well, the RS deserves its place at the top of the 911 tree. They're very, very special cars. I still feel like the 2.7 Carrera is undervalued and perhaps isn't appreciated as much as it should be, because I mean, this is the secret RS. It's a special car from what was a golden era for Porsche, because it was the generation of the 2.7 RS. 930 Turbo was around the corner with the sheer domination those turbocharged cars brought to endurance racing, and hidden amongst all that was this, the 2.7 Carrera.
So there we have it then. The 2.7 Carrera MFI is essentially Porsche's secret factory RS, though it's not a secret anymore.